Hey everyone, my name is Caitlin Smith and I decided to do my project on school nurses. So what is a school nurse exactly? Basically, a school nurse is just any type of nurse, whether it be a registered nurse or a licensed practicing nurse that works in a school with school-aged children. So it's like an education setting. They just overlook the children and make sure that they tend to any injuries or illnesses that any child may have during that school day. Some primary activities for the school nurse, they do help administer like first aid treatment, but aside from that, they also do a lot of other important things. They're the ones who manage like student health inventories, so they make sure that the proper supplies are always at the school for the students. That way, proper care is given. So things like gauze and alcohol pads, enough Tylenol and cough medicine, and things like that. They also, more importantly, they supervise state mandated screenings. So basically for all the screenings, it'd be things like, let me see, like your vision testing, the hearing testing that you have like every year. And then also, I don't know if anybody remembers, but like some schools are doing the scoliosis checks. Like the nurse will go through and like have you like bend over and check your spine just to make sure you don't have like early scoliosis. So they do screenings like that. They also advise staff and parents on any kind of medical issues. So, for instance, like with the flu epidemics going around every year, the nurses are up to date on those like stats and stuff, so they can tell like, hey, the flu is pretty predominant in this area. So they'd be the ones to like let you know that it's time to vaccinate your kids for the flu shot. They can tell you if there's like a lice epidemic going around, just things like that. They just keep staff and parents up to date on all like the important like health facts that go on every year. And then, more importantly than everything, they also educate students about healthy lifestyle choices. So basically, just like proper hygiene, because when you're in middle school, you're starting out, you're not like sure some people don't know how to use like deodorant properly. So just hygiene is a very important topic for them. They talk about sex education, drunk driving, not drinking and driving, substance abuse, just things like that. They also include things about like healthy diets and like lifestyle choices, like getting out and walking and being active, just things like that. Scope of practice for the nurse. So you're a school nurse, but you're still either a registered nurse or a licensed practicing nurse. So either way, whichever one you are, the scope of practice should still be followed for your license. So registered nurses, they have a license, they know what they can and can't do within their practicing scope. Same with LPNs. So, I mean, although they are in a school setting, they're not in a hospital setting, they can still do a lot of the same things. They can still administer medications, like say like just things for fevers and coughs. They can still administer medications that the child brings from home. They do have limited resources since they are obviously at school and not like in a hospital setting. But I mean, they can also assess the situation and determine whether or not like the child is like ill enough that he or she needs medical services or that the parent needs to be contacted. So as long as they don't go without their scope for their license, then they'll be okay. Teaching and learning strategies. So basically, the school nurse, they get all the important tasks like for health and stuff. They're the ones who have to teach the children about like proper lifestyle choices, like I mentioned earlier. They do all of those classes constantly. I feel like it's like every 6 months or every year when they do that, where they educate the kids properly on proper hygiene, sex ed, all that stuff. They also, for during these classes, they do a lot of like hands-on interactive lessons. I know for like the alcohol substance abuse, they have you put on those little, they call them beer goggles, where it kind of like simulates you being drunk and trying to like walk and stuff like that. So, and then also I read that if there's any kind of children that are having like serious problems that maybe aren't appropriate for like a group setting to be discussed, nurses can do one-on-one like sessions for that child. Maybe they're having some kind of like behavioral issues or like issues at home. So the school nurse is there to provide like one-on-one private sessions in case that child is not comfortable speaking out in a group setting. So that's great. Educational preparation. So obviously, since they're a school nurse, they're either a registered nurse or they're an LPN. So, I mean, educational wise, it's the same thing as it would be for a nurse. You can either have an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree in nursing. Although I was reading that a lot of schools prefer you to have a 4-year degree just because, I don't know, I guess they think that you just have more educational background, so you're just more like prepared to be in a school type setting. Like I said before, licensed professional nurses are also eligible to apply, so it's not just registered nurses. There are optional certifications for school nurses, like the National Board of Certification for School Nurses. There's also like different groups that can provide other certifications. Each state usually has their own requirements. Some schools require more than others, so depending on what state you're in, it just kind of depends on what that school wants you to have. And then it's not required, but it's obviously encouraged to have like mental health experience. Some of these kids have like undiagnosed behavioral issues, like I mentioned. Some of them might have like ADHD, ADD, bipolar, depression. Maybe they don't know it yet though. Maybe they're just acting out. So if you have some kind of experience in that background, you might be able to like better help that child and like better talk to them in ways that they'll understand. And it also helps if you like know about like school policies and law. Like once again, that's not required. It's just I guess that way if you're working in a school type setting, it kind of helps if you know like the policies for that school. Like I said, they also vary for every state. So, and then obviously the number one thing is you have to be okay working with children. If you're not crazy about working with kids, and school nursing obviously isn't going to be the best profession for you. So just make sure that's something that you're very passionate about. Professional interactions. So the school nurse is going to interact with teachers, obviously, a lot of administrators like the principal, vice principal, any kind of like corrections officer, or like community officer that's there on the grounds. They're going to have a lot of professional interactions with parents, whether it be face-to-face interactions or over the phone conversations. And then even possibly state elected officials. That's probably not likely, but you never know if like any kind of like the governor of Florida or anything like that, like a school board official might come and talk to you and ask you like how the program is going. So you never know. So it's important to just have good communication skills. So when I mentioned skills, a lot of skills and abilities required for a school nurse or nursing in general. Like I mentioned, communication skills are key, especially for the school nurse. Daily, they're talking to other faculty members and more important people like the government. They might be talking to parents and even to kids. It's important just to have good communication skills and to know what audience you're talking to and how to best approach them. You obviously wouldn't talk to a child the same way that you would talk to an adult. You have to use like language the child is familiar with, and different like ways of speaking with them is important. Another one, like I said, that was obvious, that was great with children. Again, don't be a school nurse if you're not a fan of children, because you're just going to be miserable. And then the number one thing that I think is the most important for the school nurse is critical thinking skills. Unlike being in the hospital setting where you have like the doctor to give you orders, recommendations, the school nurse just basically acts alone. It's important for he or she to be able to assess the situation and the child and know if the child needs more immediate medical attention or if what's wrong with them is something that you can fix there. Obviously, if it's like a fever or like a cough or something, you can fix that there with Tylenol or cough medicine, but if it's something more severe like a hit to the head or like a broken bone, then they obviously need to go to the doctor so they can get immediate help. So critical thinking skills and being like on your toes constantly and acting fast, that's extremely important in this line of work. And then it's kind of an interesting fact, but I guess it's probably obvious to some people. School nurses are in fact subject to budget cuts. So I think like back in the day, like before like budgets got worse, school nurses, they got to like stay at one school. They usually had like an office. Whenever you were sick, you're like, oh, I need to go to the nurse's office, and you go and sit there and try and have class and stuff for a little while. But now that budget cuts are happening, I was reading that school nurses, instead of having like one assigned school, they're actually starting to travel between different schools, like in like one district, which is kind of crazy because Duval itself is a huge district. So hopefully they break that up better. So like during the school year, they'll just drive back and forth between different schools, I guess, like certain periods of the day and help out there. They don't actually have like an assigned location anymore. So like no actual home office, which is kind of crazy. So, and then obviously whenever school's out for the summer, school nurses are also out for the summer. So, all right, and then lastly, here's my reference pages. I only use 2 references. A lot of the school nursing facts is kind of obvious, just based off like personal experience, but you never know. Thank you.